A warm welcome to the World Engineering Day 2020 for Sustainable Development organized by Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka. Under the theme of Build Back Wiser, Engineering the Future. There is a saying, if you want to change the world for the better, become an engineer. Because the engineers are the blood of any nation. With that in mind, let's begin this wonderful day by paying homage to our beautiful motherland. Please rise for the national anthem. UN Sustainable Development Goals, as engineers, we have a big role in ensuring that everyone has access to clean water, sanitation, reliable energy, and other basic human needs. With that notion in mind, the World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development was announced to highlight the achievements of engineers and engineering in our modern world and improve public understanding of how engineering and technology is central to modern life and sustainable development. The day was proclaimed by UNESCO at its 14th General Conference in 2019. It is celebrated worldwide on 4th March of every year since 2020. And this day, 4th of March, is the foundation day of the World Federation of Engineering Organization. Let's now watch a short video on World Engineering Day. Thank you. Today, we are fortunate enough to have this esteemed audience with us, with senior engineers, in a physical gathering. Because of that, we should welcome them officially. To do that and to express the objectives of this event, my cordial invitation goes to the President-elect of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri. Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri graduated with BSc Engineering Honors degree from University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka. He followed a master's degree at Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Trondheim, Norway, specializing in hydropower development. Later, he read for his PhD attached to Saga University, Japan. He joined the Ceylon Electricity Board in 1991. Since then, he has continued in CEB, specializing in hydropower and dam engineering for almost 2 decades. During this period, he was engaged in most of the major hydropower projects such as Samanavar and Kukle Ganga implemented in the country in various capacities and currently holds the post of Project Director of Broadlands Hydropower Project. He is the immediate past chairman of Sri Lanka Association of Institution of Civil Engineers, United Kingdom. He is a past president of the Association of Consulting Engineers, Sri Lanka, the national chapter of FIDIC in Sri Lanka. This year, he got elected as a governor of the American Society of Civil Engineers for the coming 3-year session from 2021 to 2024. This organization is one of the oldest and prestigious engineering institutions in the world where he is a fellow member. He is also the Vice President of Sri Lanka National Committee on Large Dams of the International Commission of Large Dams and has attended a number of international events representing the country. With regards to his involvement with professional bodies, he has served as a Vice President of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka in 3 previous sessions. And currently, he is the President-elect of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka. He has also served as the Chairman of the Water Forum of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka. My cordial invitation goes to Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri. The podium awaits you, sir.
Thank you, Randy, for the kind introduction. Good evening to all of you. Let me Let me welcome you all to this ISL event of the World Engineering Day 2022. This event is going on hybrid mode, so we have a number of members joining online, including one of the panel members. So let me start with our distinguished panel members today, Professor Abe Induruwa, joining from UK online. He is the former head of Department, Computer Science and Engineering, University of Moratuwa. Then we have Engineer Malith Mendis, Chairman, Mendis Cobain Consultants, and he is the FIDIC President's List adjudicator and the arbitrator. Engineer Rohan Senevirathna, Additional General Manager, Ceylon Electricity Board. Engineer Rukshan, Head of Marketing, Ship Repairs, Colombo Dockyard PLC. And the moderator of the panel, Past President, Professor Professor T.M. Pallevath. Invitees and guests from other organizations and industry. Past presidents of IESL, including immediate past president, Engineer Dharmapala, council members, CEO of IESL, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored and privileged to deliver the introductory and welcome address in this IESL event to mark the World Engineering Day of year 2022. It is our day, International Day of Celebration of Engineers and Engineering, celebrated worldwide on 4th March of each year since 2020. If you watch in the web, you will find that there's a live program, live telecast going on the World Engineering Day today, starting from Australia, ending to Costa Rica. And we were fortunate on the suggestion made by the Professor Induruwa, we could also register our program in this the UNESCO program. So you can watch the live program in the 24-hour live program. So this is the first time such a live telecast is done for a global UNESCO Day. So why is this day the World Engineering Day? This day offers an opportunity to highlight engineers and engineering achievement in our modern world, and to improve public understanding of how engineering and technology are central to modern life and for sustainable development. Thirdly, also to promote engineering as a career and to show it is an opportunity to change the world for better. And also, if you look further, there's a great deal to be done, especially to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals in developing countries to ensure that everyone has access to clean water, sanitation, reliable energy, and other basic human needs. In all countries, there's also a great deal to be done to deal with the impacts of climate change, environmental issues, our growing cities, and the challenge of emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence. So this is a day to remind all of our involvement in all these activities. Organizations and officers of the United Nations system, and most importantly, governments and civil society, the public and private sectors, schools, universities, and more generally, citizens are expected to make the International Day a springboard for awareness-raising actions. If you look at the history, the 4th March is the founding day of the World Federation of Engineering Organizations, that is WFEO. It is the federation consisting of national and international members representing the engineering societies of the world. WFEO has initiated the establishment of the World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development in 2018 as part of the 50th anniversary celebration of the Federation. The then president, that is the president of the Federation for the session 2017 to 2019, Dr. Marilyn Kanga, who led the resolution for the day, said, I quote him, engineers are not very good at articulating the value of engineering and the impact that engineers and engineering have on society. I think very true. This is a wonderful opportunity for both to talk about these aspects and engage the community in the work of engineers. This is what he said, moving the resolution to create this, establish the World Engineering Day. Then the Federation received some 80 letters of support from main international and national institutions, academia, and national commissions to UNESCO, representing 23 million engineers around the world at that time. I think our community is much more than this figure now. This resolution was backed by member states of UNESCO with support from more than 40 nations, including United Kingdom, China, Tanzania from Africa, Russian Federation, Poland, Kenya, etc. So finally, in November 2019, the 40th General Conference of UNESCO adopted the resolution to proclaim 4th March of every year as the World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. That is how this day was established. As the history of World Engineering Day in short. Since then, from its inception in 2020 to date, we have been celebrating the World Engineering Day. This year, the theme for the World Engineering Day 2022 is Build Back Wiser, Engineering the Future. In this year too, ISL organized this event to mark the important day with a panel discussion by engaging several experts representing the industry and the academia. I believe that their insights on how we can achieve sustainable development goals through engineering would be of immense use to our members. This panel discussion focuses on disseminating some of the industry experience in terms of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, achievements for a better Sri Lanka. This forum will be an excellent platform to discuss ideas to strengthen the sustainable development initiatives in the industrial environment. I'm not going to introduce the panel members in detail. The moderator will make a formal introduction of the panel members. So let me extend a warm welcome to moderator and all panel members and wish to thank for accepting our invitation and joining this important event today. I'm also happy to see many of our past presidents and council members and other members are joining with us, and we have many online. And I warmly welcome all of you again. And with this brief introduction, let me now conclude my brief introduction and move into the proceedings of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri, for boosting the event with a warm welcome. As the first presentation of the day, we are going to listen to Engineer D.A. Amila Rukshan. He obtained his BSc Engineering degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Muratua in 2007. He is an old boy of Royal College. Currently, he is reading for his final year of MBA at Postgraduate Institute of Management. He holds Certificate of Business Accounting from the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CIMA. He commenced his career in 2007 as the Service Engineer Workshop in Demo and later joined Colombo Dockyard PLC in 2008, the one and only dockyard in the island to build and repair ships. As an estimating and invoicing engineer, he has handled large number of ship repair projects inside dockyard, including yachts, dredgers, oil tankers, passenger ships, etc. In 2013, he joined Dry Docks World, Dubai, UAE, one of the leading shipyards in the world. This was a turning point in his career where he handled oil rigs, military vessels during his tenure. Completing the foreign exposure, he returned to Colombo Dockyard and currently holding the position as the head of marketing ship repair business. He joined the Institute of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka in 2010 as an associate member. In addition to his professional career, he is a long-serving committee member of Sri Lanka Dock Engineering Association, holding positions as Assistant Treasurer, Editor, Assistant Secretary. He was the batch representative of the University of Maratua Mechanical Engineering Society. He was a troop leader of Scouting Group at Royal College, Colombo in 1994. I cordially invite Engineer Amila Rukshan to address the gathering on engineering to safeguard the marine environment.
Good evening. First of all, let me thank IESL for inviting me here. I am greatly honored and privileged to stand here to deliver my presentation on World Engineering Day 2022. Let me present my topic, engineering to safeguard marine environment. In other words, how engineering protect marine environment. So we will go through sustainability, marine environment, safeguarding marine environment, and engineers' proactive role to safeguard marine environment. Our common future, also known as the Brundtland Report, is published on October 1987 by the United Nations through Oxford University Press. The broader definition of sustainability demands a simple request: not to compromise the future generation in meeting the present needs. So it is so simple. It looks very simple, but it contains all. So there are 17 goals they are talking about. So those 17 goals are completely discussing about the complete sustainability of the world. Out of those 17 goals, number 14 that discuss about the life below water, that is ocean. That also has 10 targets. In this session, I would like to focus to this particular session and detail shipping industry in marine environment. There are some statistics available in United Nations reports under Sustainability Development Goals number 14. It says more than 3 billion people rely on ocean. That means more than 38% of the world population are relying on the ocean for their livelihood. More than 80% of world merchandise trade by volume is called by sea. But some reports says it is not 80%, it is 90%. Mean protected area coverage of marine key biodiversity, that is increased to 44% from 28% during last 2 decades. And sustainable fisheries are contributing 0.5% of the total GDP, which was increased from 0.1% since last 4 years. So, environment. Environment can be defined as a sum of total of living and non-living elements and their effects. When we hear environment, the first picture comes to our mind is land. It is not wrong. Environment is the surrounding of us. But to understand the significance, let's look at the big picture. The land surface of the planet Earth is only 29%. Out of those 29% also, 10% covered with the glaciers and another 19% from the barren lands. So, ocean is covering more than 70% of our planet. And ocean contains 97% of the planet's water, and it represents over 95% of the biosphere. So deep seabed is estimated to have over 10 million species, and 2/3 of those species are not yet identified. And more than 50% of the oxygen comes from the ocean, and that is basically from drifting plants, algae, and photosynthesized bacteria. Another 25% from kelp, and only 25% of the oxygen is coming only from the land-based plants and tropical rainforest. This is not to encourage the deforestation. So, because the trees are supporting to maintain the livelihood of the planet in many other forms, but to bring the facts and taking this. And ocean can absorb the heat, and ocean can retain the heat, and they can transfer the heat also. So being the largest surface area for evaporating the moisture, oceans are supporting the rain to the land as well as the ocean. So oceans are a significant factor when we are talking about the climate and weather. The ocean can make a huge impact. So there are some economical advantages from the ocean also. Firstly, it is most economical mode of transportation compared to the size, weight, and the complexity. And in terms of given mass and given distance, shipping is the most energy efficient transport mode. And it is the safest also. That's why almost all the dangerous cargo is transported by the ship. And it is the most carbon efficient mode to transport because it emits only fewer grams of exhaust compared to the each and every tons of cargo transported. And this efficiency can be further improved by using LNG, which is the world cleanest fossil fuel, and also some other renewable energies, and also with some advancement of the technologies which we are going to discuss. But everything has a cost. So the cost the planet has to pay on these economical and other advantages is very high. So I'm picking some of the threats that currently we are facing. That is air pollution, greenhouse emission, and we are manipulating the creatures in the sea, toxicity effects, and antifouling, spillage of oil, dry bulk, garbage, this underwater noise pollution, ship strikes on marine megafauna, and also ships striking on each other and creating some sinking and some catching fire, and sediment contamination on ports. So many problems at the moment human is creating on this marine environment. Let's see how the engineers are giving solutions for this. But before that, to control such adverse effects, there are many conventions, regulations, acts, and laws imposed by local, regional, and international context. IMO, the International Marine Organization, is the United Nations specialized agency who imposes these key conventions. So these key conventions we will see, but there are some other conventions also, such as control of harmful antifouling systems, control and management of ships' ballast water, and recycling of ships, that we will go in detail. And these are the main key MARPOL conventions imposed by IMO. It has 6 annexes. So starting with oil, preventing oil pollution by oil, and noxious liquid, harmful substances. So those 3 things, there should be some reception facility on the shore, and sewage, preventing pollution from sewage. Now the sewage is allowed to dispose to the dispose to the sea in row after 12 nautical miles from the land. But after treating, it is allowed after 3 nautical miles from the land. And garbage, air pollution, which is a very significant thing. So all these regulations can exist, but regulation itself would not solve the matter. Then who has to take the lead? Is it the governments, politicians, or social activists, journalists, or medical officers? No. It should be engineers. Obviously, it is a balance between necessity and sustainability. There is no point of maintaining sustainability by suffocating or by restricting our needs. Needs also should be fulfilled, but at the same time, the impacts to the environment should be controlled. So only engineers have these solutions to compromise between these 2 ends. Let's see how our engineers take the lead to let the world to sail safely forward. So, double hull of oil tankers. In earlier days, the ships had only one hull. So the cargo is contained with only one shell plate, where when there is any collision, the tendency of oil spilling over the sea is very high. So engineers came up with another solution. So why don't we put another buffer hull to safeguard these oil tanks? So once it is implemented, when there is a collision, that reduces the risk of spilling the oil to the sea by 60%. And also it gave an added advantage. Once there is a collision, once there is a damage, still the vessel can float and they can go to their destination or the nearest port safely without affecting the environment. So this is one of the solutions given by the engineers. Oily water separator. Now ships are consuming a lot of seawater in order to cool the systems as cooling water and also for flushing. For so many requirements, they are using this seawater. So ships cannot carry all this seawater. Definitely, they have to dump this seawater back to the sea. But it should not be dumped as it is, because there will be a lot of contamination with the oil, cleaning products, soot, rust, and sewage. So before dumping to the sea, there should be some treatment process. As it is going in mass scale, this oil water separator was the best solution for this thing. So the engineers would use a very simple solution in this, that is the specific gravity. So oil is less dense to the water. That simple theory they used to implement this system. So whatever the oil is less dense means oil is always floating on top of the water. So this is the apparatus. In each chamber, there are mainly two chambers. In each chamber, oil will go up and retain on top of the chamber, and the oil will be collected from the top and the water will be collected from the bottom. So even after, from the second chamber, even after the water comes out, it will not go to the sea directly. It will be tested, because there is a limitation, there is a regulation. Nothing is perfect. So this oil can contaminate with the water can contaminate with oil, but it is allowed to have 15 particles per million. So after checking, it can be released to the ocean. And sewage treatment plant. This is another solution came from the engineers. Sewage is biodegradable. Anybody can ask, sewage is biodegradable. So why these engineers are breaking their heads to find some solutions? But it is true. It is a half true. But because not all sewage elements are biodegradable. Untreated sewage takes a long time to degrade. That means disintegrate. So definitely there should be a treatment process. Most popular treatment methods are chemical sewage treatment plants and biological sewage treatment plants. These biological sewage treatment plants are using bacteria in disintegration process. Reducing NOx emission. This is one of the key areas. So normally selective catalytic reduction method is used to remove the nitrogen oxide in exhaust of these ships. So there are some other methods. Here there method, exhaust gas recirculation, water injection and water immersion. But almost all these other methods can be used only for the shipbuilding activities. For ship repairing, that means for retrofits and shipbuilding, both can go with this selective catalytic reduction method. So let's see how it is happening. So you can see in the picture, the converter is in the way of this exhaust line. So the simple solution is we are injecting liquid urea into this exhaust gas. Exhaust gas is about 300 Celsius in the temperature. So immediately this liquid urea will turn into ammonia. So ammonia is reacting with nitrogen oxide, producing the H2O, that means water and nitrogen. So that is the solution. With that method, we can contain 90 to 95% nitrogen oxide available in the exhaust gas. And sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, both are really harmful to the environment, mainly because it can react with the rainwater and cause acid rains. So it is not only a problem to the marine environment, but to the whole planet. So immediate regulation given by IMO is to stop high sulfur fuel oil and go for low sulfur fuel oil, but that is very expensive. So engineers are requested to find some solution for the vessel operators who cannot afford such a price for the fuel oil. So they came up with this scrubber technology. Similar to the previous, here also we are treating the exhaust gas. So here we are injecting caustic soda to the exhaust lines. So caustic soda is reacting with sulfur dioxide and that contain the sulfur along with this treated water. So with this method, we can contain about 95% of sulfur dioxide in the emission. So this gives the benefit to the vessel operators. Okay, they can continue with their cheap fuel type, but there are some threats also, because with this one we have some water, that means some treated water coming out. There are regulations to dispose that one. So in future there can be some barriers, some regulations against this disposing of this sulfur contaminated water. And also owners are going for investment for this scrubber because of the price gap with the low sulfur and high sulfur fuel. But in way forward, the gap can be narrowed down. So the investment, it is in millions. Now, the scrubber installation goes from 1 million to 5 million US dollars. That is the investment. So they might not break even if that gap comes down. Anti-fouling systems. So anti-fouling means biological fouling. That is the accumulation of biological fouling along the underwater surface of the vessels. So this biological fouling consists with microorganisms, plants, algae or small animals. So what happens is these items goes to the hull and attach to the hull and slowly penetrating into that one. Like grass roots are going into the walls and destroying those walls. These biological fouling can destroy the hull. That is one part. The other part is this contamination of this biofouling will slow down because it is creating friction between the ship and the water. So because of that, the ship will move slowly plus high fuel consumption. So because of that, this anti-fouling should be bring to the picture. So earlier the solution was the paint manufacturers. They added arsenic, copper and lead-based metals to these paints, and they apparently killed the biological fouling. They killed it. So later the idea came why we are killing these species, especially because these heavy metals, they are not deteriorating so fast and it can climb up these food chains and finally it can come to the human also. So there were some concerns. So people wanted some paints which are not toxic. So engineers gave the solution, okay, if we cannot improve the paint, let's go for some mechanical way. So they gave a paint which can peel off. So the new anti-fouling which we are applying, that can peel off with the with these muscles coming on the vessel, coming on the hull. So what happened when the vessel is going at a speed of 10 nautical miles or 12 nautical miles, these organisms, they are removed along with the peel, along with this paint. This paint is edible to the fish. So it is not harm, there is no harm for that one. So people were happy, engineers gave the solution. But way forward again, there was another concern. Why we are dumping this artificial paint into the sea? Do we really have to feed these artificial things to the fish? That was the concern. So again, engineers were requested to give the answer. So they came with another solution. Okay, in that case, we will not allow the paint to peel off. So the paint will remain there, but paint will create a mirror finish. That means the surface will be highly, that means the porosities will be minimum in the surface. So the marine growth cannot hold to the surface. Even if they hold to the surface, when they are growing, because of their own weight, they will fall down. And also with the speed of the ship, definitely they will fall down. So these paints are called glass flake paints. And in other terms, we are telling it silicon-based paints. So that is the solution given by the engineers. And ballast water treatment systems. For the convenience of the maneuverability and to reduce the stresses on the ship's hulls, ships are taking ballast during their voyages. So that is not a problem. That is totally okay. The problem is whatever the ballast water, that means sea water, they are taking into the ships, they are going to some other region and dumping over there. With that sea water, some sea creatures are traveling. So as an example, some jellyfish came from this Caspian and Black Sea, and with this ballast water transferring, they came to Atlantic Ocean. So in Caspian and Black Sea, this jellyfish had some natural predators, but not in the Atlantic Ocean. So this jellyfish destroyed completely that fishing communities' main income in the Atlantic Ocean. So because of that, IMO came with some regulations to install ballast water treatment plants. That means whatever the ballast they are taking to the ship, when they are deballasting, it should be treated and make sure there are no alien species coming to that particular region. So that rule was rule was in effect from 8 September 2017 for the new build vessels, and for the existing vessels who are trading at the moment, they were given the deadline of 8 September 2022, but because of the COVID, they had an extension, so the deadline shifted to 2024. Mainly when we are selecting a ballast water treatment plant, there are few concerns. One is whether it is to a new building project or a retrofit. That is one concern. And the flow rate of the ballast water, depending on the size of the ship and depending on the operation, the flow rate of this ballast water is changing. And the policy of that particular company on disposing the waste. These are few of the treatment systems. You can see the ballast water treatment system consists of mainly two parts, physical treatment and chemical treatment. So this is the most common method. Here the chemical we are using is chlorine, and basically we are not killing the microorganisms, we are just inactivating. So this is the most cost effective and most popular ballast water treatment system. And there is another method. Instead of chemicals, we are using titanium oxide or ultraviolet rays to inactivate the organisms. But here, basically what is happening is we are making the microorganisms incapable of reproduction. That means we are not killing it, but we are killing their further generation ability. So that is another method. And this one, basically here we are killing the marine growth. There are no other options because we are suffocating these organisms with inert gas. We are making less oxygen environment for them to suffocate and get rid of it. And this one is, we are using ultrasonic treatments, shock treatments to destroy these marine elements. And magnetic separation method, here we are not using any chemicals, no neutralization, but this is an expensive method. And coming back to IMO regulations, this reducing greenhouse gases is one of the prime targets of MAPOL Convention. It is in Annex 6, which we referred earlier. So all new ships should calculate the energy efficient existing ship index. We call it EEXI, and categorize their ships from A to E. A is the best one. So whatever the ships coming under category A and B, they are getting incentives from the ports to encourage, and also they are building a good rapport between the market and especially in the financing sectors. So engineers have a big task in this categorizing. So we engineers have to see how to improve the overall efficiency of the ships starting from the very beginning. That means from the initial designing stage itself, they have to start the process. So it starts with basic hull designing, rudder designing, and changing the fuel type, efficient engines, high efficient propulsion systems, and even less friction coatings on the hull. Here is clean and clean design. These are voluntary compliances, which is a sort of preparation for upcoming environmental regulations. We can see there are MAPOL regulations, that those are the regulations for the existing vessels, and clean notation is for the compliance with all mandatory marker requirements. Sometimes the vessels are getting exemptions from their classification societies and the regional authorities, but if some owner wants to ignore those exemptions, this is the method. And clean design. Clean design means going with the clean notation plus some other additional requirements like stricter oil tank protection and installation of 5 ppm oily beige separation. Now earlier we told as per the regulation it is 15 ppm, but now they are going for 5 ppm and by using biodegradable oil for stern tubes like that. So renewable energy for ships. This is the most latest update on shipbuilding. So most of the ships as an alternative now going for LNG. But most of the European vessels, they are using diesel electric propulsion and also going for hybrid. So these hybrid vessels for long distance traveling, they are burning fuel and they are traveling. But when they are coming closer to the ports, they will shut down their engines and they will use their battery pack to travel. And also most of these European countries, now they are considering of providing shore power to the docks. So whatever the vessels come to the pier, they can shut down their engines. There will not be any emission. They will use the shore power provided by the ports. Now, Colombo Dockyard being an international shipyard, so we also build these kind of vessels to the market. So in 2019, we built one cable layer ship for Japan, that is diesel electric propulsion. At the moment, we are building ship repair, this cable repairing ship, that is for France, and 6 eco bulk carriers, that is hybrid bulk carriers, that is for Norway. Another 2 diesel electric propulsion vessels, that is those are supplying vessels for offshore wind farms. So, in summary, engineers use their knowledge and creativity to find solutions to any problem. So, any task given to engineers, they are finding some solution. Like in anti-fouling case, they wanted to get rid of the marine growth without killing them. So, engineers gave the solution. Then again, they wanted not to feed these artificial things to the marine environment. So, for those also, they have given a solution. Let's say if they get an inquiry, if they get a request, okay, why do we paint on the hull? So let's not paint on the hull. Definitely engineers will come with the solution. So thank you so much. I would like to make this opportunity to wish all the engineering fraternity. It's a very big day for us, World Engineering Day, and wish you all the good health, good luck, and happy life with sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer G.A. Amila Rukshan, for enlightening us on safeguarding the marine environment. Let's now move to the next presentation. It will be done by Engineer Malith Mendis. Engineer Malith Mendis graduated in 1982 and then continued with his master's degree till 1984. He has been practicing civil engineering in many organizations such as Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau, Lankin Group, Puttalam Cement, later known as Holcim, and at Lanka Hydraulic Institute as its Chief Executive Officer. He has worked in Sri Lanka on the Rantabi Hydro Project, Colombo South Harbour Project, Hambantota Harbour Project, and overseas on Kolkata Harbour and El Kala Harbour, Algeria, and many other projects. Since 2010, he is the chairman of Mendis Consultant Private Limited, which specialized in projects and contract management. He is a FREDIC, accredited trainer in contracts, one of only 5 in Asia, and has carried out training of engineers and other construction personnel in Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, Myanmar, Timor-Leste, Brunei, Maldives, Fiji, Solomon Island, Seychelles, and Samoa. With his expertise in contract management, he serves as chairman, member, consultant of many dispute adjudication boards and arbitrations. He is a member of the list of adjudicators, arbitrators, and structural engineers of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, a member of the Directory of Structural Engineers of the Society of Structural Engineers Sri Lanka, and a member of the primary panel of arbitrators of the Maldives International Arbitration Center. He is a former president of the Association of Consulting Engineers Sri Lanka and was the head of the modeling and engineering group of the expert team on Setusamudram projects, Sri Lankan government appointed team for research and discussion with Government of India in 2007 and 2008. Let me now cordially invite Engineer Malith Mendis to address the gathering.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I have been asked to talk about SDGs in construction. So construction, as you know, covers a large area. So I've chosen 3 areas in which to speak. As far as achieving SDGs are concerned, Sri Lanka is very much ahead. And I think we made good progress on not just Build Back Wiser now, but we've been building back wiser for a long time. So which is a congratulations to all, I believe, engineers of Sri Lanka. I think they have taken the credit. So I will, as you know, the Sustainable Development Goals, they were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Of course, in the current situation, I don't know if they have achieved peace, but the idea is to achieve prosperity and to be able to put a sustainable system in to that we can continue as a human race and make sure that we have a good quality of life. That's a simple aims of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, I have chosen these 3 because they have to do with construction, clean water and sanitation. And I believe, having worked at Lanka Hydraulic Institute, I can speak a bit more about that. We have done very well on that, as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. I will say what the UN wants, but we will say what we achieved. What we have achieved here, I can talk about it. Then industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We have achieved some in the area of industry, but we have not progressed far enough. Innovation, we are doing quite well, and as well as infrastructure also. When it comes to sustainability cities and communities, we have done quite well as far as housing is concerned. When it comes to urban transport, we are not doing too well. So I will talk about those 3 areas, SDGs 6, 9, and 11, and hopefully keep you interested, and hopefully to find your thoughts. Construction has relevance to most of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'll be looking at these 3: water and sanitation, industry, innovation and infrastructure, and sustainable cities and communities. As others are speaking about other areas, I will go into other areas. But where is Sri Lanka at the moment as far as SDGs are concerned? In South Asia, we are leading. So we are doing very well. In 2021, overall performance of Sri Lanka in 2021 is 87 out of 165 countries. This is a remarkable achievement, as in the year 2020, it was 94. So we certainly have made progress, even with the restrictions of COVID. And year 2019, the overall performance of Sri Lanka was 93 out of 162 countries. So we are making progress, and certainly in certain areas we have made, and we are making good progress. So to talk about SDG 6. What the UN says, it's about clean water and sanitation. More and more countries are experiencing water stress, together exacerbated by the climate change, possibly. But Sri Lanka, of course, is a water-rich country. We have nearly 3,000 cubic meters of water per capita. And this is something that we have to make sure that we use well, use equitably, and that everybody has access to clean water. By 2050, it's projected that at least 1 in 4 people will suffer recurring water shortages. Safe and affordable drinking water for all by 2030 requires we invest in adequate infrastructure, provide sanitation facilities, and encourage hygiene. Ensuring universal, safe, and affordable drinking water involves reaching over 800 million people who lack basic services. In 2015, 4.5 billion people lacked easily managed, safely managed sanitation services. And 2.3 billion, that is a quarter of the world's population, lacked even basic sanitation. So talking about Sri Lanka, we have done very well in this area. We are, of course, a water-rich country. In fact, access to safe drinking water and sanitation can be said to be a reason for Sri Lanka's good health. Indices, we are very good as far as indices are concerned, even compared to Australia. Although we spend only 1/10 for health that Australia does. Development of water supply infrastructure, educator input into sanitation facilities, dissemination of information has resulted in these good results. In this, I believe, I have to take credit for gains we have made in this area. And we have made very good progress. The Stockholm Environment Institute in the report of May 21 says, Sri Lanka has made good progress in terms of access to safe drinking water over the years. Around 89% of the households have access to safe drinking water. There are, however, regional disparities. For example, Norelia has an access rate of 54%. So as you know, Norelia, in some areas, during the dry season, their water resources run dry and they have a shortage of water. So you have to do bowsed water. But we'll have to find ways of pumping water up there. So we have done very well in this area. Specifically, drinking water is identified as integral to safe and effective learning facilities and safe housing with basic amenities. It reduces waterborne diseases and contributes to productivity of farmers and other labor. And it will also reduce spending on healthcare. It will reduce malnutrition and increase the attendance of pre-primary children in their education activities. Also, as far as in so many countries, women tend to go fetch water and their productivity is lost, the gender equality is not there, they spend a lot of time fetching water. So we don't have any of those problems. We are done very well. Other one I want to talk about is the SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Investment in infrastructure and innovation are crucial drivers of economic growth. UN says, with over half the world population now living in cities, mass transport and renewable energy are becoming ever more important. UN says promoting sustainable industries and investing in scientific research and innovation are very important for sustainable development. More than 4 billion people still don't have access to internet. So that's half the population doesn't have access to internet, and 90% of that are from developing countries. So you can see the problems there are. Let's look at Sri Lanka. This is an area where Sri Lanka fails. Our infrastructure spend on public transport has been minuscule for decades. We do spend on highways, and we have become a motorized private transport buying nation. So how to say, our public transport is terrible. Sri Lanka Railways handles 7% of passenger transport and 3% of goods transport. So 97% of goods transport goes on the roads. So 93% of passenger transport is on the roads. We are all on the road and we spend time fighting traffic. I'm not surprised. We have made very little investment into railways. Simple things, passing loops, signaling systems, nothing has been invested. While you find in most countries, railways should have about 30% of passenger transport. Goods transport even more. Where there's no perishable goods, you can transport by rail. Why are we transporting cement by road? There used to be a railway line that used to go into the southern cement factory. The one to Puttalam only comes bringing the limestone. We don't transport it anywhere else. The spur line from China Bay into the Trincomalee Harbour was closed up years ago. People have built houses, and that's the end of that. For use of transporting all the way to the Trincomalee Harbour is lost. While many developing countries are making strides in improvements to public transport, as I said, we are a motorized private transport by nation. We are invested very little in renewable energy. Rohan will talk more about that. Our execution of the electricity generation development plan is slow. We have made little headway in developing industries. We do not manufacture any substantial product of any complexity. We are still stuck in the 90s. We still talk about garments. We have to move on, and we can do. We do have a problem. Our construction cost is high, second highest in Asia when it comes to construction cost. Our electricity cost is high. We'll have to bring that down if we're going to attract industries and make investments come, whether it's a local investment or foreign direct investment, whatever should be invested in Sri Lanka. What are the pluses? We'll have to look at that very seriously. Then let's look at SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. UN says more than half of us live in cities. By 2050, 2/3 of all humanity, 6.5 billion, will be urban. There will be hardly anybody left in the villages. Sustainable development cannot be achieved without significantly transforming the way we build and manage our urban spaces. The rapid growth of cities and rising populations and increase in migration and slums are becoming a more significant feature of urban life. You can see the miles and miles of slums in Calcutta when you go there, or Mumbai. Making cities sustainable means creating career and business opportunities, safe and affordable housing, building resilient societies, and providing public transport, creating green spaces, and improving urban planning. Let's look at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has made significant progress in this area. We have been fortunate that we do not have urban poor problem like most of the developing countries do. We don't. Our urban poor problem is very little. Maybe the village revenue programs such as Gamuda, I was not a big fan of it at that time. I was younger, but maybe I didn't see the fact that village revenue will make the villager not migrate to the city. He has a employment opportunity there. Maybe Mr. Premadasa was right at that time to say, let's go and put a garment factory there and make sure that the facilities, the post office, the registration office, all that is available in the village. And we have done very well there. But all the services people need is in the village. The Stockholm Institute report says Sri Lanka has made significant progress in terms of the percentage of population living in permanent houses. We all have permanent houses. 85% of the population live in permanent housing. You don't have slums. We have very little slums. Less than 1% of the population is living in underserved settlements according to Sri Lanka Voluntary National Review. But UD, of course, says that it can be high as 50% in Colombo. So those are some things that we have to make sure that we, the serving of the communities do improve. And I think UD has been working on that for a long time. With SDG in mind, UDA started a major project in 2016. I will say it was not there before, but with this SDG in mind, trying to achieve this SDG, 50,000 housing units for low and middle income houses within 5 years to cater to the growing demand for housing in urban areas. A recent report highlights challenges with the current predominant approach of relocating residents from underserved dwellings to new high-rise apartments. So as you know, it has its own social consequences. A lot of people are unhappy about being uprooted from where they are and put in somewhere else. So these concerns include the effect on social networks, security and livelihood. And this one-size-fits-all approach may need to be looked at again, but we are doing very well. Sri Lanka has to be proud that our people have places to live. So as you can see, in conclusion, I am not a very technical presentation today, but we have made vast strides in water supply and sanitation, and also in housing and urban settlements. However, in urban housing, we need to make more progress, and I'm sure it's been done. When it comes to construction material and making them sustainable, making construction sustainable, we also have made progress. I will just talk about two things I am very clear about. Cement, in 2001 or so, we thought out we should have blended cement so we can reduce the clinker content in cement and reduce the carbon dioxide emissions. So we managed to get blended cements included in the standards. And now we have gone on to as well as composite cements, where we use different mineral components in combination to achieve. So that gives engineers also a choice of types of cement where they can work with for their projects, which is very good. In sands, marine sand is available. Aim should be to eliminate river sand extraction. Now, when I was at LHI in early 2000s, we did the study, and at that time, the salinity wedge was traveling up the river, threatening the water extraction rubber tali. So there were all types of proposals brought in. We'll put a rubber barrier, we'll put cement, sand barriers, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is the unsustainable extraction of sand. The LHI study showed even if sand extraction is stopped that day, it will take 70 years for the bed levels of the Canley River to come back to what it was earlier, which would prevent the salinity wedge from traveling up the river. Luckily, we have been, at a certain time, there was a reduction in the mining, but as you know, governments change, and this is a political issue, and it comes to the same thing. We are destroying livelihoods, but the idea should be that we have a sustained mining, if there's mining of the sand in the rivers, but make sure that we extract the marine sands, which are there. LHI did the study some time ago. As you know, at certain types of glacial maximum, our coastlines are far away from the existing coastline, and there's quite a lot of sand deposits there. Now, as you know, we filled the Colombo port city with that sand. So, there is sand, make it sustainable. How we procure our sand. And then, of course, energy efficient buildings and infrastructure. Technology is available to us in Sri Lanka. Systems are available. We can get all kinds of certifications. So we have made vast strides in that area also. So we need to invest in things we need, not what is nice to have. We have been investing too much on what is nice to have, when we don't do what we need. Investment in public transport, both urban and intercity, is a crying need in this country, if we are to achieve SDG and give a better quality of life to our people. Investment in railways, focus on getting traffic out of the roads and highways. For an example, the Mahaputlam line. We go and do extended lines to Beliatta, but the problem is it giving us economic return? The Mahaputlam line is something that they called consultancy proposals. Nothing has moved since then. Imagine all the coal from Maho is transported by truck to Novachalai. All the coal for the cement plant, kilns are run on coal, are also transferred from Maho by truck, or all the way from Trincomalee when the monsoon is on this side. So it's Mahaputlam railway line should be a priority to us. It goes down the valley, no crossing of any major rivers, can be done for a few $100 million. Very few, and it will give us good economic return. So we fail in that as well. Then investment in rolling stock, passing loops, modern signaling systems to increase volumes handled. 3 years ago, I did a study on whether I can put 100 containers, 20-foot containers into the south to go to Hambantota Harbour from the Western Province. Couldn't do it. But after a calculus in the line, passing loops are too short, signaling system is still a bit archaic. Electrical systems in place, it will be very difficult to coordinate sending 100 containers to Hambantota. So that also will have to be unloaded at Beliatta and taken by truck to Hambantota Harbour. So how we really need to look at all these things. How are we going to make things sustainable? How are we going to make things give a return to us on our investments? Priorities have to be decided by engineers. I'll repeat that again. Priorities have to be decided by engineers, not politicians. This is the problem with us. We leave it to the politicians. And it's all towards the well-being of Sri Lankan people. I hope I made a political speech, but I hope it fire your thoughts on making sure that we do what is necessary for us. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Mendis, for sharing your knowledge on SDG relevant to construction. Now is the time to listen to the presentation on Towards Low Carbon Electrical Grid by Engineer Rohan Senevirathna. Engineer Rohan Senevirathna is a chartered electrical engineer with over 30 years of experience in the field of engineering and technology. He is a fellow member of the Institution of Engineering and Technology UK and the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, and a member of the Engineers Australia. He is an alumnus of University of Moratuwa and obtained his electrical engineering degree in the year 1986. He also earned his Masters of Business Administration degree and the postgraduate diploma in Computer Technology from University of Colombo, and the postgraduate diploma in Electrical Power Distribution Systems from University of Trondheim, Norway. He joined CB in the year 1986 as an electrical engineer and served in many divisions of the CEB in different capacities, and at present he serves as the Additional General Manager, Distribution Division 4 of the CEB. He also functions as the Executive Director of the Flagship Project Monitoring Unit of the Presidential Secretariat. He is an active member of the Institution of Engineering and Technology and served as the chairman of IET Sri Lanka Network and as a member of the South Asia Committee of the IET. I cordially invite Engineer Rohan Senevirathna to address the gathering.
Good evening to everybody. President-elect of IESL, Kamal Luxury, past presidents, council members, other distinguished invitees, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me extend my sincere gratitude to the IESL for inviting me to be a panelist in the panel discussion being held today to mark the World Engineering Day 2022 under the theme, Build Back Wiser, Engineering the Future. I congratulate IESL for organizing this important event to mark the World Engineering Day. The celebration of World Engineering Day is an opportunity to promote engineering on a career, highlighting how engineering can change the world for the better. I believe today's panel discussion also, in a way, assist and highlight the engineering, how engineering can change the world for the better. When I was invited for today's panel discussion, the President-elect of IESL requested me to speak something related to renewable energy, and I was asked to take a topic on my freedom. Then I thought I will speak my 20 minutes time duration on this particular topic towards a greener electrical grid. Now let us see the big picture, how the world is generating electrical energy as at now. If you look at 2019, this is how the world energy mix went by. 35% of electrical energy in the world generated from coal power, 23% from gas, about 4% from oil, about 11% from nuclear, about 17% from hydropower, about 6% from wind, and about 3% from solar. So this is the current status. Perhaps this may have changed a little bit during the year 2020. And this is how the installed capacities in the world, the various sources of power generation in the world. If you go to 2020, about 2 million megawatts of coal power is being generated in the world, 2 million megawatts. And about 1.8 million megawatts of power plants are from natural gas. Hydropower is somewhere around 1.4 million. And the solar and the wind, they are each about 700,000 megawatts. But when you look at the future, the exponential growth you see from solar power and the wind power, and also from natural gas power plants. The coal will come down, or either remains as it is or will come down. But the battery storage will add it to the equation in time to come. And this is how our neighbor produced electrical energy in the year 2019. So they produced about 76% of their electrical energy from thermal sources, and about 10% from hydro, and about 2.7% from nuclear, and from the other renewable sources, they produced about 9.3. So out of this 76%, the large number, majority is coal power. This is how Sri Lanka produced its electrical energy in the year 2020. 31% from hydropower, and about 36% from coal power, 26% from thermal power, that is oil-based power, about 2% from wind, and about 2.5% from solar. So this is how 2020 went by. So when you look at this, you see a big difference when you compare this with the world power generation. One thing is we do not have natural gas for the power generation. Second is, in the world scenario, it was about 3 to 4% from oil-based power plants. But whereas in our Sri Lankan energy mix, it's about 26% from oil-based, that is diesel and furnace oil. So that is a significant cost and burden to the country, and significant cost and burden to the power utility for the power generation. Now let us see how the world look at 2030 towards a greener electrical grid. So every utility's dream is to change the business model from traditional utility to digital, decarbonized, and decentralized utility. These are called 3Ds: digitized, decarbonized, and decentralized. So the power generation in the good old days is from a central place and it's in one direction. But now it has changed. The decentralized power generation, there are so many generators. Even a household with solar power is a generator. So the distributed generation is happening all over the world. So that will be a significant amount of generation in time to come. That is called decentralized power generation. So our wish to have more and more decentralized power generation. And all utilities wanted to decarbonize their electrical grids and to absorb renewable energy as much as possible. So that is also a dream of all utilities in the world. And also to bring the new technologies to the national grid and to their utilities so that they can accommodate and absorb more renewable energies to the grid. So digitization of the grid is very important. Digitization of the transmission, digitization of distribution, and also digitization of other activities of utilities are very important. Because without the modern digital technology, it is challenging to bring large quantities of renewable energy into the grid. Now, this is how the world energy mix are going to be by 2030. There are different scenarios. Stated policy scenario, announced pledges scenario, sustainable development scenario, and net zero emissions scenario by 2050. So there are various scenarios. If you go to the second scenario, announced pledges scenario, so this will be the second column will be the energy mix of the world by 2030. So there are a significant component of solar and wind. Solar component will be about 12% and the wind will be about 15% and hydro will be about 15% and so on. But coal will remain at about 27%. So this is the most probable scenario by 2030 if all announced pledges are met by all the countries in this world. So that is the pledges. But certain scenarios like net zero emissions by 2050, so that scenario needs more renewable power. That means more solar and more wind and more hydro and so on. So that will be a different scenario, again a challenging scenario. And in the modern day, in the greener grid, the grid is digital and it's superimposed with the electrical grid. So there will be software, analytics, and various IoT sensors, and so many things play a huge role in the grid, the transmission grid as well as the distribution grid. It will be customer centric. The hardware component will be surrounded by the software components. Those are transformers, power generators, and switchgear, and so on. On top of all these things, the renewables. Renewables will play a huge role. There will be large capacities of solar, large capacities of wind power, and also the batteries and the microgrid technologies. So every utility's dream is to have a greener grid and to approach and convert it to a digital grid, and also to have a hybrid digital and electrical grid in time to come. So this is how India is going to generate their power in the 2030. This is the energy mix proposed by Government of India. So they are going to produce about 23% of their electrical energy from solar. That's a large quantity. And 15% from wind, about 11% from hydro, and about 1% from biomass, and about 2% from gas and 4% from nuclear. But still 44% remains. So 44% of their electrical energy will come in coal power in 2030 in the energy mix proposed by the Government of India recently. When you look at the capacities, India is going to build large capacities of solar and wind. So their renewable capacity will be about 500,000 megawatts in the year 2030, out of which about 300,000 megawatts will be from solar, and about 140,000 megawatts will be from wind, and about 75,000 megawatts from hydro. The coal will remain about 266,000 megawatts in the year 2030. This is in megawatts. And now let us see how Sri Lanka can look at the green electrical grid and what would be our way forward and approach. Government has declared the policy. Government has declared the policy saying that 70% of electrical energy in the country should be produced from renewable energy by the year 2030. So this is a policy document, and policy was properly approved and conveyed to Ceylon Electricity Board and many other organizations in early 2022. Now this is 2022 energy mix of Sri Lanka. I showed this diagram before as well. So you can see how it was. It's about coal 36 and hydro 31 and thermal 26 and so on. So we have to change this energy mix to reach the 70% renewable policy. So how it should be? If we are going for 70% RE scenario, we have to generate about 22% of our electrical energy from solar by 2030, and about 15% from wind, about 27% from hydro, and about 13% from natural gas, and the coal will come down. Coal will come down to about 16%, and the fuel will come down to about 0.25%, about 30%. So this should be the energy mix of Sri Lanka by 2030 to reach the 70% renewable capacity. So this is on energy. So if you look at the megawatts, it's a different scenario. The 31% of capacity will come from solar, and about 12% from wind, and about 18% from hydro. So we have to add large capacities of solar, wind, and various other renewable sources to have this 70% mix. So in the 2030 scenario, we have to have about 3,700 megawatts of solar power and about 1,500 megawatts of wind power and so on. So we have to have liquid natural gas, that is natural gas also about 1,900 megawatts. So this is the capacity picture of 2030 to reach the 70% scenario by 2030. Now, once you reach that, you can see this 2030 column. So large quantities of energy will come from solar, wind, and hydro. The solar will be a major player. It will generate about 6,500 gigawatt hours of energy. And wind will produce about 4,400. So those are substantial. The large quantities, large chunk of power or the energy should come from solar and wind by 2030. But to support this renewable integration, to support this renewable addition of renewables, you have to have firm power as well. Therefore, you have to have combined cycle power plants and the gas turbines which should run on natural gas. So those are called LNG fuel conversions, LNG combined cycles, and LNG firm peaking. But the amount of energy that we are going to generate from these power plants, these firm power plants, are less compared with solar and wind. In addition to that, you should have pump storage and the battery storage. Because when you have large amount of renewable energy integrated to the grid, you have to have battery storage. Therefore, we need large quantities of battery energy as well as pump hydro energy as well. So by 2030, our total demand will be about 28,000 gigawatt hours. And when you look at the capacities, this is the capacity picture. The wind and solar will play a huge role. So solar, as I told you all before, the solar capacity by 2030 should be 3,700 megawatts, and the wind should be about 1,500 megawatts and so on. So the large megawatts of capacities will come from solar and wind. But in addition to that, we have to have firm power. The combined cycles of about 700 megawatts, then the firm peaking power capacities of about 1,200. Coal 900 will remain. There won't be any additional coal as per the new government policy. At the furnace soil and the naphtha power plants, you can see it's just matter of less than 100 megawatts. So the pump storage will be about 400 megawatts and the battery storage will be about 900 megawatts. So there will be large capacities, especially large capacities will come from solar and wind. So if you look at the total peak power demand in 2030, it is about 4,500 megawatts. But the installed capacity will be about 12,000 megawatts because of large integration of solar and wind to the grid, where the plant factors are much less compared with other plants. Therefore, our installed capacity will be double or more than double to cater such 70% energy scenario. So this will be the scenario, the capacity scenario for 2030 in our power system. If I summarize it, how the capacities should be increased. So wind, we have 248 megawatts. So from next 9 years, we should add another 1,245 megawatts. And the solar, now we have about 510 megawatts. It should add, during next 9 years, we should add additional 3,200 megawatts. And the major hydro, another 190 megawatts, because major hydro more or less developed. Any hydro more or less developed, we can add about 150 megawatts. And the biomass about 134. The total renewable additions for next 9 years will be about 5,000 megawatts. It's a large number. It's the addition of about 5,000 megawatts. So the yearly addition, we have to add about 550 megawatts of renewable power each year.
to reach this 70% target. Each year we should reach at least 550. So out of which the wind addition should be each year 138 megawatts and the solar addition should be each year about 350 megawatts. So this is the capacity requirement, capacity additions that has to be implemented to reach this 70% scenario by 2030. When we look at the solar additions, because it's the largest addition, so we have to add from roof solar, we have to add from ground solar. So the roof solar will play a huge role. We have to add about at least 900,000 megawatts of capacity, the solar capacity from roof solar. So that there is a potential, so that we should harness that capacity to add this large quantities of solar capacity from roof solar. Then in addition to that, we have to have ground solar. So ground solar can come in small scale, medium scale, and the large scale. The large scale ones will be solar parks. So when you add all these things together, we should be able to reach this 3,700 figure by 2030. When you look at the investments that are required to reach this 70% renewable target, investment has to come from mini hydro, wind, solar, biomass, and so on. Those are the power generation side. So all will be private investments because government is not going to put up wind power plants, perhaps maybe one wind power plant in Mena, but not solar and not mini hydro. So all these will be investments. So when you look at this scenario, the investments that is required to construct these power plants to reach 70% scenario is about 4,000 million US dollars. We should be able to attract about $4,000 million investments to put up renewable power plants during next 9 years. In addition to that, we have to have further investments or expenditure to build battery storage schemes, pump storage schemes, and the transmission infrastructure. We have to upgrade the transmission infrastructure that requires about 1,800 million US dollars. And the pump storage requires about 780, and the battery storage requires another $1,500 million. So the transmission, battery storage, and the pump storage investments will be another $4 billion. So altogether, it's about 8,000 million US dollar investments and the expenditure that are required to facilitate 70% scenario. So if we can attract these things in a win-win model, it's wonderful because it's large investments that we can attract on solar, wind, and various other things. If we can draw these the investments to the country, it will be very, very positive. To do that, we have to support on the other side by improving the transmission network, distribution network, battery storage, and various other facilities. Now to do this exercise, so different players have to play significant roles to achieve this target. The Ministry of Power, Sustainable Energy Authority, Ceylon Electricity Board, the Treasury, Ministry of Land, the entrepreneurs, general public. So everybody has to come together and to work hard to achieve these targets because each agency has a different role to play. Like Sustainable Energy Authority has to identify all these the sources of power, renewable power available, and to prepare the projects, and then hand over those prepared projects to Ceylon Electricity Board for grid interconnection and to the balance work. So Treasury has to do a significant role in inviting and bringing these investments because those are challenging, and also financing the transmission network. The lands are a scarcity, so we need a lot of land for these transmission lines for solar power projects and wind power projects and so on. The entrepreneurs have to play a big role. They should bring about $4 billion investment to the country. General public should support by giving their fullest support for the lands and the traces and transmission lines and so on. So everybody has to get together. So under the leadership of the Ministry of Power and the Presidential Secretariat, everybody has to get together and to work on an integrated plan to reach this 70% scenario. The CEB has to play a major role. So one is the preparation of least cost long-term generation plan to suit for 70%. Our engineers are working on it now. Then they have to do renewable integration study and to fine-tune these long-term plans. Because when you go for large amount of penetration of renewable energy, system stability is a very important fact. Therefore, renewable integration study is a must. So based on the integration study, you have to fine tune your least cost long-term generation plan. Then you have to have firm power. Those are liquid, natural gas power plant, other power plants to supplement renewable energy. When there is intermittency, when there is no renewable energy, still we have to maintain the grid. So therefore, firm power is a must to attract more renewable energy. Without firm power, it is not possible to attract firm renewable energy. So parallelly, the CEB has to develop firm power capacities. So that is very, very important fact. And the biggest challenge for the CEB and the biggest task for the CEB is to develop the transmission network and the distribution network. Because we have to bring these large quantities of power from various places of the country, the solar power, wind power, to the city centers through new transmission lines. Most probably they will be 400 kVA transmission lines. So we have to construct large number of transmission lines to bring this renewable power into the load center. Also, we have to convert the existing grid to a smart grid. Without the smart features, it's challenging to absorb large quantities of renewable power. So we have to upgrade, we have to digitize the grid, digitize the transmission grid, digitize the distribution grid to absorb large quantities of renewable power. We have to go for various other schemes like demand response schemes and many other schemes to manage the grid. So therefore, that kind of developments are required to bring large quantities of renewable power. And CEB has to promote roof solar. So that facilitation has to be done by CEB mainly. Then the interconnection for the new renewable power plants. Then preparation of RFPs and so on to advertise and to bring these renewable plants into commercial terms. Then we have to sign power purchase agreements and so on. And then the CEB has to pay the generators, renewable generators. In order to pay the renewable generators, CEB bottom line should be healthy. If CEB doesn't have adequate cash generation, CEB will not be able to pay the generators. So therefore, CEB also should be viable in this exercise. The bottom line should be very positive. Then only CEB can make these payments to the renewable generators. So CEB has to play a major, big role in this exercise. Now let us see how we performed during last 2 years and what will happen for the next couple of years as per the present way. In 2020, we added about 122 megawatts of renewable power. And 2021, we added about 219 megawatts of renewable power. And this year will be a very good year for the renewable power addition for the CEB. We are planning to add about 400 megawatts because we are going to get the two hydropower plants, Kamal's power plant and Umaoya. So once we are going to add two large power plants, hydropower plants, and then there will be mini hydro, there will be roof solar, there will be wind, biomass, and the ground solar. So this year will be a remarkable year for CEB and for the country because about 400 megawatts of renewable power will be added to the grid. The next year it will be about 249. That is as per the committed ones. But when we go on this 70% scenario, we have to add more power, more renewable power to the grid. 249 is not enough. Each year we have to go for at least 500 megawatts. So we have to get more solar power, more wind power in coming years. So this is how we have performed during last 2-3 years. So on the renewable additions, as I said before, the Broadlands will come, Umaoya will come, and the Monopoly will come, 31 megawatts. Construction is being done. Then the last one will be the Sitavaka, which the business models are being discussed. So the Broadlands is a reality. I think in a couple of months it will be commissioned. Umaoya in a couple of months it will be commissioned. Morogul under construction in 2023 it will be commissioned. Sitavaka also perhaps somewhere in 2024 it will be commissioned. And mini hydro, there is leftover capacity of about 150. I think by 2025 all 150 will come onto board. So nothing much to do on that one. The private investments will come and the people are ready. And the wind power is 1,245 megawatts we have to take into the grid. So that's a challenging task, but we can go for large power plants like the MENA has about 300 megawatt good capacity with the transmission infrastructure. Then we have to go for Punari with little bit more transmission construction. So that can add about 200 megawatts. So likewise, so we have to promote a lot of wind power plants during this 9 years to bring this 1,245. Roof solar 900 may be a feasible thing. So now we are adding about almost 100 megawatts each year. So next 9 years, we can add 900 megawatts, provided that the distribution network is upgraded a little bit to take over this capacity. So it's a feasible option to get about 1,000 megawatts of roof solar during next 9 years. Then the ground solar is a challenge, 2,300 megawatts of ground solar. So we have to have different business models to bring this 2,300. So that will be large solar parks or some other mechanisms like small parks and so on. The biomass also in the equation. So we have to work very hard to bring these renewable capacities. Then as I said, the firm power has to come, combined cycles has to come, gas turbines has to come, fuel conversion should take place, pump storage should come, battery storage should come. So as I explained before, the new transmission line should come, existing line should be strengthened, new transmission equipment should come to support the stability. Then the system control center should be upgraded, transmission network should be upgraded to a smart transmission grid, and the distribution grid should be upgraded and make it to a smart grid. Then advanced distribution management features should be introduced like smart metering and control centers and so on. All these are required to absorb large quantities of renewable power. There again, I again say that all agencies have to work together. We have to have a proper plan, well-defined plan, sign off by each agency, giving the responsibilities to each and every agency, agree on the plan, agree on what we should do in each and every year, and then embark on this journey. This is a challenging journey, but still possible. If all get together and work very hard, still it is a feasible project, but we need the commitment from all the agencies, and every Sri Lankan has to commit for this particular project, because this project is much bigger than the Mahaweli project. So like the commitment, we have to have, everybody has to have the commitment. Then the role should be played by the engineers is very vital, because most of these things are engineering based solutions. When you bring pump storage, when you bring battery storage, when you bring renewable power, wind, solar, transmission lines and everything, system stability, system control, whatever we talk in this project, it's 90% engineering. So a lot of engineering decisions has to take place and a lot of engineering input should go. So I think this will support the sustainable development goals, this project definitely, as the speaker said, Mr. Mendis said. So definitely the more renewable energy means we are supporting SDG goals, maybe one or many. So therefore, this is a very good project, very challenging project, and engineers have to play a very big role in this exercise. And if we all get together under the leadership, perhaps a secretariat like leadership from one place to monitor the review and facilitate and to carry out the interagency organization with a big umbrella organization with a proper leadership. If all agencies come together and work very hard, I think we can achieve this target by 2030. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Engineer Rohan Senevirathna, for the informative presentation on towards low carbon electrical grid. Let's now listen to Engineer Professor Abhaya Induruwa. Engineer Professor Abhaya Induruwa is the first ever student to graduate with a first class honors in electrical and electronic engineering from the University of Sri Lanka, Katuvada campus, winning the Professor O.P. Kulashestra Award for the best electrical and electronic engineering graduate in 1975. While serving at the University of Moratuwa, he established the teaching department of computer science and engineering in 1985, and in the period 1989 to 1995, pioneered, learn, to provide internet connectivity for education and research. A founding member and an honorary fellow of the Computer Society of Sri Lanka, Professor Induruwa is a chartered engineer and chartered fellow of the Institution of Engineering and Technology, UK, a chartered fellow of the Institution of Engineers, Sri Lanka, and a chartered fellow of the British Computer Society. He is also a founding member of the Internet Society and a member of the Internet Society Sri Lanka chapter. He served on the National Committee which formulated the computer policy for Sri Lanka, and he was pioneered to the inaugural board of the Computer and Information Technology Council, SINTEC, in 1984. He held the SINTEC portfolios and chaired the respective working committees on computer education, standardization, and data communication and computer networking until 1998. He also served the Sri Lankan public sector organizations in various ICT advisory and consultancy roles. In recognition of his lifetime achievement in pioneering internet deployment in Sri Lanka, the Internet Society honored Professor Induruwa by inducting him to the Internet Hall of Fame 2014. Recognizing his significant contribution to the development of networking and internet in Sri Lanka, Professor Induruwa was honored in 2015 by the Internet Society Sri Lankan chapter with an Internet Pioneers Award on the occasion of celebrating 28 years of Internet in Sri Lanka. For his exceptional contribution to the digital arena, Professor Induruwa received a Lifetime Achievement Award for Sri Lanka from Sri Lanka Telecom in 2017. In 2019, on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of LEARN, Professor Induruwa was honored with the LEARN Founders Award by the LEARN Association. Professor Induruwa served on the Internet Hall of Fame Advisory Board for the Internet Society from 2016 to 2018. He also served as a member of the General Assembly of the European Cybercrime Education and Training Group of the Europol. In 2018, he served as an expert on cybercrime to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime on their Education for Justice project. I cordially invite Engineer Professor Induruwa to address the gathering via the Zoom platform.
Thank you very much for those very kind words.
We can't hear you properly.
Thank you very much for the kind words introducing.
You are on mute, so could you please unmute yourself, sir?
I have unmuted. I have unmuted. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can somebody tell me if you can hear me? Yeah, I think, yes, so many people are saying that they can hear me. So it means the technology is on our side now. Yes? How about the auditorium? No? The comp is muted. Should I continue or?
Yeah, you can continue, sir.
Yeah, you hear me now, right?
Yeah, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great. Yes, I'd like to thank the CompA for those kind words of introduction. And it's always a great pleasure to be connecting with you and sharing some ideas. So I thank the Institution of Engineers, the Council, for organizing this very important event, celebrating the World Engineering Day 2022, and also inviting me to give a short presentation and then participate in the panel discussion later on. The celebration is a very appropriate word in today's context, because I think what the world is today is largely due to the enormous contributions of engineering legends in the past and present. So we heard about several topics surrounding marine environment, the construction industry, and of course going to a greener electrical grid in Sri Lanka. So all the efforts by the engineers have made these things possible and will be made possible in the future. To my mind, I think the biggest engineering feat, although my friend engineer Malith Mendis said that 50% of the world population is without internet connectivity, it is still the biggest engineering feat so far, because it connected half the population of Earth together. They brought them together using a very simple two protocols invented some 50 years back. And those two simple protocols have not changed significantly, except for some cosmetic changes to make it efficient and secure. And it will probably not change for the next foreseeable future. So that is engineering achievement, which is something commendable and something we should worth celebrating. So that's just one example. And for today's presentation, let me share my screen. I hope you could see it. Yes, the ISL Media Center. Can you see my screen? Yes, somebody says they can. Yeah, good. Okay. I thought of selecting a topic which is related to the internet, the use of IoT to contribute towards fulfilling the Sustainable Development Goals proclaimed by the United Nations. Now, for my talk, I thought of talking about engineering the future of agriculture. Now, agriculture is a very old profession. Probably from the beginning of humanity, people had to make their food. So agriculture is nothing new. But how do we take the agriculture into the next century is the question. So in this presentation, my objective will be to look at how ICT is changing the world's food production landscape, and also how it will help to achieve the the Sustainable Development Goals. In order to do that, we will have a very brief look at the relevant SDGs. I will also formulate the problem by giving a brief description. And I will try to justify why IoT. In that sense, I will not talk about what is IoT. I think people are quite familiar with IoT. Many people use something like a Fitbit, which monitors their vital statistics and probably upload to a cloud server. People are familiar with the pedometer on a mobile phone. So these are devices that are connected to the internet, working in the background and doing various things as defined by the software systems. So how can IoT alleviate some of the issues that we will discuss in a moment? And some examples, current examples, and finally a summary and some conclusions. Of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals defined by the United Nations, one of the important goals for this particular presentation is goal number 2, which is talking about zero hunger. Now, the idea is that nobody in this world, anywhere in any corner of the world, should not have hunger, and they should not suffer from hunger, and they should have adequate access to food. So we're talking about food security, improved nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. The goal number 6, which you have come across previously in a previous presentation also, is clean, high quality water. Now, it looks very simple, but it's also very complex. And in fact, we will see later on that 1.6 billion people on this planet, they do not have access to clean, fresh water. Goal number 15 is sustainable use of land. Again, looks very simple, but it's very complex because of the behavior of the human beings in the past, especially in terms of the industry, the agriculture industry and manufacturing industry, causing a lot of pollution and creating problems for the environment. So the land itself is something that we have to make sure that is developed in a sustainable manner. So agriculture, very importantly and interestingly, impacts on all 3 of these sustainable development goals. Now, the problem is that the world population will reach nearly 10 billion by 2050. And in order to feed this, we have to increase the food production by nearly 70%. Now, we had to do this in the presence of diminishing agriculture land, scarcity of clean, fresh water. I said that according to UNICEF 2021, 1.6 billion people lacked access to safe water, and this is going to increase if we continue in the manner that we have been continuing in the past. Natural and man-made disasters. Natural disasters destroy crops and agriculture, and also man-made disasters result in reduced production, loss of production, and so on and so forth. And we have to do all that in the presence of ever-changing climate conditions, which are sometimes very unpredictable and difficult to handle. Now, one of the things that we have to realize in this game is that traditional farming cannot meet the demand. For example, according to WHO, in 2021, 2.3 billion people lacked access to adequate food. So that means there is hunger in the world, 2.3 billion of 8 billion total population. So which means if you continue with traditional farming, they do not scale well. We will not be able to meet the demand in the 30 years or 30, 40 years time. So therefore, these sustainable development goals have to be looked at with this as the backdrop. So just to understand a bit more, how does agriculture impact on the SDGs? The current situation is that there is uncontrolled deforestation, loss of biodiversity balance, environmental pollution, mainly because of use of chemicals, fertilizer, pesticides, weedicides, and such, and the climate change. Some of them are controllable, for example, deforestation, biodiversity balance, environmental pollution, they are in our hands, whereas climate change to some extent is in our hands, but sometimes the natural disasters can cause things that are out of our control. Now, the important questions are, can we allow this to continue? Is this sustainable? What can we do to alleviate these problems? Now, the solution, as far as I can see, is engineer agriculture around IT, ICT, and IoT, information technology, information and communication technology, and Internet of Things. As I said, we need to understand why we are trying to introduce IoT into agriculture and what does IoT do. Now, very simply, IoT allows any physical object to be connected to the internet. Now, of course, when you connect a physical object, what happens is that they become smart. Now, the ability of the device to be able to understand the surrounding environment and to react to that is the basis of the Internet of Things. So as shown in this cartoon, the fridge is reminding a person not to forget to buy milk. Of course, it would be cooler if the fridge not only talks to it, but talks to the person, but also sends a text. And that is not something impossible. Let's take another real life example. At the moment, the agriculture industry, especially the animal husbandry farming industry, they talk about smart animals. So this is a smart cow. And the cow becomes smart by attaching this IoT tag, which allows the capture of vital biometrics in real time. So there are embedded sensors as part of the IoT tag. And the important thing is that all the data is captured in real time, and therefore it allows you to communicate these using some kind of communication system. And for this particular application, long-range wide area networks are the most suitable because they are low power and they are long range. There are other technologies like 4G, 5G, or even simple Wi-Fi, depending on the range. But for long range, the current industry standard is the LoRaWAN. So the tag also has a transceiver, which means it can transmit and receive signals through this tag. Now, once you collect this data, not from just one smart cow, but all the cows, maybe tens of thousands of cows in your farm, they produce lots of data. So that will be captured. They'll be stored in a central database. And there comes the big data analytics, which will allow you to understand trends and work on those data to be able to increase your yield or make it more productive or make it more profitable and things like that. It also allows you to apply artificial intelligence-based algorithms to detect anomalies because you constantly monitor in real time, so any change can be immediately seen, and therefore you can take corrective measures and apply them without wasting time. Now, the tag is also complete with the solar panel and embedded battery. So it is kind of self-contained during the day. Obviously, the solar panel will charge the battery, and the sensors and transceivers will work from that power. And in the night, the battery will keep the tag powered on. So these are simple real-life example to show how the IoT helps you to make the agriculture smart. Now we talk about, if you expand this idea into more aspects of farming, we talk about the smart farms or smart agriculture or connected farm. And this particular infographic shows the extent to which IoT is deployed. There are some key elements here. The first one is very important in an agriculture farm is the soil health. And this little station here is a station that measures the moisture content of soil, the pH value, the nitrogen content, and the amount of sunlight it receives. And it will transfer this data to the central database through a wireless connection. There'll be drones, which are the aerial type. There are the ground types as well. The aerial type drones will take images, thermal or other types. And the idea is to be able to understand what changes are happening on ground, taking from an aerial view. And if you find that changes are happening in your crops, the images can be analyzed and corrective action can be taken. You will use a fleet of agribots to do the servicing of the agricultural fields, very much the same way that human beings used to do that, but now, of course, it is automated and it is more efficient. The smart tractor is another feature of a smart farm, and the idea is that these are the steering is GPS controlled, and also the route can be pre-planned and programmed, thereby reducing the number of times it has to return to a base or take unnecessary routes, and thereby reducing the amount of fuel consumption. Now, we saw the cow. Of course, it's a texting cow, which means that you are sending text to the owner or to the system. So these are the key elements that will produce lots of data, and of course, data will end up in a database, and these data can be analyzed, and the farmer can use that for his benefit. So if you look at these few elements a bit more detail, the idea is to monitor the soil health. We need to look at the temperature, humidity, moisture, pH balance, and need for fertilizer depending on the condition of the soil. The smart cows will allow you to monitor the animal health and well-being, optimize nutrition. We will talk about that in a little bit detail later on. And in fact, it can even inform when an animal is ready to go into labor. Now, again, imagine if you have tens of thousands of animals, it will be very difficult to keep an eye on each and every one of them, unlike in a small farm. So therefore, it is much more easier if the information comes to you rather than you go and find information yourself. Drones with IoT sensors, they are used for spraying of crops, constant crop monitoring, as I said. And of course, it also allows you to survey and map weeds, yield and soil variations, and so on and so forth. The ground bots, the service robots that you have, they can be employed for selective weeding, fertilizing, and harvesting. The word selective is very important here because we are not undertaking indiscriminate spraying of weedicides and insecticides and so on. It is selective, so there are a lot of advantages in doing that. We saw the smart tractor, which is with GPS control steering, optimized route planning. It reduces soil erosion because you're not unnecessarily taking the tractor along the land, and it reduces the fuel consumption, which indirectly and directly reduces the environmental damage as well. All that data that is collected will give you a very rich and varied data set, which can be used for trend analysis and, and detection of anomalies. So they all result in increased yield, reduced wastage, improved source management, and big data analysis, and the use of artificial intelligence type algorithms for the improved efficiency and productivity. So if IoT is such a good thing to implement in a connected farm, where are the specific areas that IoT can be implemented in the food production process? Precision farming, livestock management, smart greenhouses, hydroponics and vertical farming, cell-cultured animal proteins, and 3D printing of food. And these are the places where we find right now IoT and ICT, IT implemented in order to achieve high yields and better products. If you go into a little bit detail of the precision farming, the objectives are to increase yield while reducing wastage. Now, the wastage can be in the form of several parts. It could be seed wastage, fertilizer, water, land, and fuel. Now, the illustration shows how a drone can be used to spray fertilizer or water. It could be spreading the seeds. Now, the idea is that because the drone can be controlled very precisely, it reduces the amount of wastage. And seeds are very, and good quality seeds are very expensive, and it's a very important factor in the agriculture. So therefore, any reduction in the wastage of seeds is profitable to the farmer. So therefore, it is one of the very clear objectives that you can achieve. Now, when it comes to fuel, reduce the wastage of fuel, you can imagine what would be the consumption of fuel and also the amount of pollution that a big tractor generates if it has to be used for applying fertilizer or for spraying the crops. Now, these obviously these drones are also powered. They could be powered by electrical rechargeable batteries. But at the same time, if you use fuel-powered or combustion-type powered engines in the drones, the amount of power needed to lift the drone and do this is very much less compared to the traditional farming vehicle, tractor, or any other large vehicle. So therefore, there's a reduction in wastage, and there's economies of scale to be achieved. The illustration shows here is a service robot, and these are used to reducing the use of or wastage of chemicals. For example, if you are applying fertilizer, you don't again indiscriminately spread the fertilizer all over. You put it where it is needed. So the robot is solar powered, as you can see. There's a solar panel on top, so it doesn't pollute the environment. It also has the ability to capture images. So it has image processing capability, image capture and processing. So it can identify weeds. It can discriminate between the actual plant, agriculture plant, and the weed, and also the type of weed, because it has a database of weeds that it understands. And after that, it can apply the correct weedicide. So again, rather than applying blanket weedicides, which will kill even the good plants, and sometimes it will not kill the required weed, this is targeting the particular weed with the appropriate weedicide. So therefore, the weed killer will be used to kill that particular weed. So the reduction of the amount that is used is also a factor in producing much more healthier agricultural food products. When it comes to livestock management, I think one of the major objectives will be the easy management and tracking of livestock. A term that is used to describe that is called GPS geofencing. Obviously, it illustrates the fact that it uses GPS in order to be able to track your animals. And of course, the geofencing part comes where if you come to near the boundary, a signal will be sent, and therefore you can go and locate your animal and bring them back onto your fields. So you will not lose your cattle because they just go straight. The other part of livestock management will be automatic monitoring of feeding patterns and control of feeding. So again, the farmer has all the data that is needed to understand the behavior and the growth of the animals that in the farm. One of the very important things is to monitor the nutrients, the amount of nutrients that an animal gets. So this can be done automatically, and you can customize your feed in order to achieve the balance. So that if the feed is not right for that particular animal, you customize the feed rather than giving the same feed to everybody, and then the animals will then have the best health and the best productivity because they are all customized to their particular physical and biological needs. One of the very important things on a farm, as I said, is the detection and control of disease, because if you have a disease that can be communicable, it is contagious, then it can spread very easily because these animals tend to congregate together. So therefore, isolating them as early as possible is very, very advantageous to the farmer. Of course, when you do all that, the objective is to be able to decrease the mortality rate, and that is to increase your productivity and efficiency of your farm. Now, the third aspect of IoT in agriculture is in smart greenhouses. As I said, IoT, there are two sides of the IoT technology. One is the sensor. The sensors constantly monitor the environment. So inside the greenhouse, it will be taking measurements of all kinds of physical parameters like temperature, humidity, sunlight, the pH value, and the amount of carbon dioxide and things like that. And then the second part is the IoT actuators, which control the physical parameters to obtain the optimum performance. So it could be the temperature, light, humidity, pH balance, soil health, and mineral content. And depending on the set values, if something deviates from the set value, corrections will be applied through the actuators so that the balance is brought back. So the idea is to be able to automatically optimize the parameters within the greenhouse, and that will make sure that your plants will have optimal growth within the greenhouse. At the same time, because you are using just enough of everything, the energy losses and crop losses are minimized, and that, of course, increases your yield. Now, something related to the greenhouse is also the hydroponics, where the plants are grown in a solution rather than on soil, which is also called vertical gardening. And the reason for that is because you can go vertically rather than horizontally. You are not dependent on agricultural land, which is, as I said at the beginning, we do not have enough. So therefore, this is going to address the problem of lack of suitable agricultural land. Once you have a greenhouse, whether for hydroponics or otherwise, one of the advantages is that pest control becomes very easy because they are surrounded environments. So therefore, one thing, you will not allow pests to come in. And if you get pests inside, it will be easy to control them as well. Now, again, the objective is to use IoT to ensure optimal crop growth. For example, you can use IoT-enabled cameras, which will take images which can be analyzed to detect leaf diseases. Now, if you have to do it manually, or if you have to use people, you have to inspect, you have to go from one plant to another, which is very labor intensive and also time consuming, and you might sometimes even miss. Whereas the cameras are 24/7, they're watching, they are taking images, they're analyzing, and if they find anything, it will be reported, and therefore you can take corrective actions very quickly. The thermal and IR type cameras can also used to detect pests and insects. So again, it is automatic 24/7, and any incident that occurs will be notified immediately, and therefore you can take corrective action. Now, the other aspect I'd like to talk about IoT or IT in agriculture and food production is lab-grown meat. Now, there's a question, is this fantasy? It is not. It is reality now. In 2021, a very famous restaurant in Singapore called the 1880 restaurant became the first in the world to serve cultured chicken meat. And at that time, the cost was $23 per meal. The cost is definitely very high at the moment compared to the natural meat products. But obviously in the future, as the demand grows and the production increases, the value of cultured or lab-grown meat will come down. So the future is here and now. The lab-grown meat is also known as cell-cultured meat. The traditional meat production has problems. The very first one is that meat has to come from animals, and animals have to be fed. And in order to do that, what people do is they have to grow crops. They have to grow soya, corn, etc. to feed the animals. And in the process, they clear large areas of forests. So that is the deforestation that is happening in the world. Now we cut the forest, grow food to feed the animals, and then we get the animals to give us food. So that's the cycle that we would like to break in introducing lab-grown meat. Now the process of feeding the animal by destroying the environment and then using the meat to feed the people is definitely upsetting the biodiversity balance. And it accelerates climate change. And also a fact is that animals, especially cows, they release huge amounts of methane. And it is estimated that 250 to 500 liters of methane per day is released by a cow. Now that is definitely accelerating climate change and contributing to the climate change. So if you can reduce that, it not only it helps you to reduce the deforestation, but as well as it reduces the climate change as well. So through this, we try to achieve sustainability. A final point in that is also it eliminates cruelty to animals. We don't have to kill the animals to eat meat. So therefore, that is definitely a win-win situation for those who eat meat. So in summary, remember we talked about the UN SDG goal number 2, which said zero hunger. So optimized crops and food yield will enable us to try and feed everyone in the world. So therefore, that is the way that we have to meet the goal number 2. Goal number 6, goals 6 and 15, they were talking about the sustainable use of water and land. The optimized land and water usage will help us to conserve fresh water and produce enough food, but at the same time, giving fresh and clean water to those 1.6 billion people who do not have access to clean water now. A goal which I did not include in my at the beginning is goal number 13, which talks about reducing the impact on environment and climate. Obviously, all those things that we talked about in the presentation are directly helping us to reduce the impact on environment and climate. So these ideas directly address the climate change, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, irrigation, water management problems, issues with pollutants, soil degradation, and waste. One other advantage in having the farms connected is that the farmer is directly connected with potential buyers. It will fetch the best price to the farmer and that leads to a better quality of life, which is also one of the UN goals that they have. Now, with all this, obviously, there are some disadvantages. I don't want to hide away from that. So The first two things are the necessary ingredients in order to be able to have a successful smart agriculture farm. You need to have reliable internet connectivity and reliable electricity supply. Now, in developing countries, again, Malith said that half the population in the world do not have access to internet. And we are talking about agriculture in especially developing world. So therefore, if you do not have internet connectivity, how do we implement smart agriculture in these countries? The good thing is that the IoT is a very cheap and economical technology. And remember, I talked about the LoRaWAN, a technology that is implemented on a individual basis. You don't have to have the global internet to provide network connectivity. And again, Wi-Fi is another technology. 4G, 5G is another technology that can be used to provide connectivity. But of course, all that depends on electricity. So again, if you do not have reliable electricity supply, which most of the rural places in many parts of the world will not have, that is going to be a problem. And that's probably where the solar and wind power will help these communities. One other issue with introducing IoT and modern technology in agriculture is the farmers need to understand the modern technology applications in farming, and that it requires educating and training people. So that is something that we need to be mindful of. The IoT-enabled machinery can be expensive and repairs can be costly, but that is something that you have to factor in anyway, because you need to have revenue enough to be able to take to absorb the repair and other costs. One of the very important considerations in introducing modern farming into agriculture industry is that that can displace a lot of the farm workers. Now, if the farm workers become unemployed because they're not needed on a farm, that can lead to rural depopulation. That's something we have witnessed in many parts of the world, in countries like India and so on. There's a huge migration to the urban centers, and therefore that can lead to rural depopulation and congesting the urban areas. Now, I think of all these disadvantages, the biggest is the liability to network attacks and sabotage. Because cyber attacks and cyber crime is quite rampant these days in every field of industry and public life. So if it is an internet connected farm or smart farm, the network attacks on the farm and sabotaging can lead to loss of production, loss of revenue, and loss of food, and therefore that can have multiple implications. Finally, if you look at how the world has taken smart agriculture on board, in 2022, the market share is only $15 million, rising to about $22 billion in 2026. Now, if you compare the total global food value of $8 trillion, this is a very, very minute proportion. So in a way, it shows that people are slow in absorbing and applying these technologies in agriculture sector. But at the same time, it also shows that there's a lot of potential, and there is the possibility for every country, including developing countries like Sri Lanka, to get into this business. So therefore, in conclusion, I would say it is ideal for developing countries. It is easily implemented in small farms. Obviously, the large corporates will also have a lot of muscle power to implement all the technologies that I talked about, but it is also easily implementable in small farms. And the IoT industry itself is a very steadily growing industry. Currently, we talk about 22 billion IoT devices connected to the internet today. So that means almost 3 devices per each and every human being walking on this planet. We have 8 billion people. So we have 22 billion IoT devices, 3 times as much, rising to about 50 billion by 2030. The market share of IoT was $380 billion in 2021, expected to rise to $2 trillion in 2028. So just in 6 years, it'll go to a trillion mark. It's a widely available technology. Remember, I said because of the billions of devices that are required to deploy IoT, manufacturers are the IoT industry is producing these in huge quantities. Therefore, and also miniaturization and the technology of these IoT devices, they tend to produce these at a very, very small cost. So therefore, it's a widely available, cheap to deploy technology. So which means that the cost of ownership is low. So that's why I said it's ideal for developing countries, because even small farms can own this technology at a very low cost of ownership. So it's a good opportunity for Sri Lanka and also to try and contribute to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I hope the presentation was useful, and if there are questions, I would be happy to take them during the panel discussion. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Engineer Professor Induruwa, for enlightening us on Internet of Things for smart agriculture and how it could contribute towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's now move on to the panel discussion. Today, the panel discussion will be chaired by Engineer Professor T.M. Pallewatha. Engineer Professor T.M. Pallewatha is a Senior Professor in Civil Engineering and the Head of Department of Civil Engineering of the Open University of Sri Lanka. He graduated from the University of Moratuwa with first-class honours in civil engineering, topping his badge in 1986, securing Dr. A.N.S. Kulisinghe Award for the Best Civil Engineering Graduate and also Award for the Best In-Plant Training. After working at Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau and National Water Supply and Drainage Board involved in design and construction, he received a scholarship in 1987 from the Dutch government for getting engaged in postgraduate studies. Upon receiving his doctorate in 1993 from the University of Tokyo, he returned to Sri Lanka and got engaged in the field of structural design and construction engineering of deep foundations and high-rise buildings until joining the academia as a senior lecturer and advancing up to the post of senior professor. He became a corporate member of IESL and a chartered engineer in 1996. Was elevated to the status of fellow in 2002. He was accepted as an international professional engineer in 2008. He has been the editor for all 3 periodic publications of IESL and the council member of IESL for a period in excess of 20 years and became the president of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka for the session 2018-2019. Also, he is a fellow and former vice president of the Institute of Automotive Engineers Sri Lanka. Let me now cordially invite Professor T.M. Pallewatha to chair the session. And also, I would like to invite Engineer G.A. Amila Rukshan, Engineer Malith Mendis, Engineer Rohan Senevirathna, Engineer Professor Induruwa to the panel. Dear panelists, please take your respective seats.
So, good evening to all of you. I think it has been a very long set of presentations. Of course, they were quite interesting. So it is my pleasure to finally host this panel discussion on what we have been talking about. And I would first like to thank our presenters. Presenters who made the presentations today. First of all, Engineer Rukshan on the ocean diversity and maintaining that ocean conditions. And Engineer Malith Mendis for discussing actually very positive things about Sri Lanka on the SDGs connected with the construction industry as well. And about the low carbon grid, a presentation by Engineer Rohan Senevirathna from the CEB, and a very happy picture for all of us at this moment that in the future we might not have power cuts. And finally, Professor Induruwa from quite afar to have joined with us and come with a very important aspect of food and technology together to make our food secure. That is use of IoT in the agriculture. So all these were quite interesting, and when it came to today's importance as the World Engineering Day, all this actually showed how the engineering can improve the world conditions for everybody, 8 billion people in all, and numerous billions of other species. So how we can have a sustainable future for us as well as everybody on this planet. So let's actually start the discussion, the panel discussion with the idea of trying to achieve the SDGs on real world scale. And first of all, I would like to ask a simple question from Engineer Rukshan. I think Engineer Rukshan brought up a very not much talked about aspect of sustainability, the ocean, the sustainability of the ocean, and how to maintain the ocean of our world to have sustainability for the future of the mankind as well as all other species. So, Engineer Rukshan, now as used in your concept of ocean liners or ocean-going vessels, how would you think the ocean sustainability could be improved by the aspects that you have taken, like maintaining the thing? So it's a very simple question. I think you have answered most of these aspects, but in overall, as a summary, what can you say about
Yes. Thank you very much. Question. It is actually a very interesting topic to have because most of the leisure also now is happening in the sea. We can see a lot of cruise vessels as a leisure activity. So not only about the essential things, even for the hobby, even as leisure also people are going to the sea. What I say, most of the protein required by the people mankind is being produced by the sea. So fishing is a big activity. In other terms, what we can see in Seychelles, Maldives, so many countries are adopting these things. So they are not fishing all the crops they are having. They are going in sustainability manner. That means they are controlling their nets, size of the nets, so many things. So that is one aspect. That is about the food stability. Regarding the transport and all, yes, obviously the waterways can do a lot of things. Not only the sea, even the local rivers and streams, those type of things also. And in majority of the world, like Dutch people are masters in this one. And even our closest neighbor, India, they are mainly transporting, they are connecting their east and west coast through the ocean lines. Actually, they are going around Sri Lanka, but still they are maintaining that they are transporting about 60 to 70% their cargo through the sea waters. So basically, that is the way of becoming sustainable. That means there are a lot of things they are doing to control the pollutions, like I explained in my presentation, and that is the thing.
Yeah, okay. One other concern I think that all of us are having is the pollution of the oceans, especially near the continental shelf around. So, what are the mainly also pollution by plastics and non-biodegradable items? So, what can engineering do to circumvent that problem in the near future?
Yes, mainly, I'm not talking only about the marine field, mainly the plastic is the main pollutant in the marine aspect, that means in the sea. So, I have seen there are some articles, nice, actually those are still in the research level. So, they are using robotics, so many things to collect those plastics. And also, recently also we experienced one ship, if I name it this Express Pearl. So that is another aspect. We are polluting in massive scale. So first of all, we should avoid such incidents. We should be very cautious about those incidents. But secondly, we should have some reactive actions to take. So whenever there is an accident, yes, we should have those proactive measures to go and tackle those situations. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Engineer Rukshan. So coming to Engineer Mendis, I think your picture of how Sri Lanka has fared in these sustainability goals. So it's a nice picture. The way things are we are facing at this moment. That's a very encouraging picture that we got from your presentation. So, what do you think for the construction industry? Because at this moment, construction industry is a little bit at a halt because of the so many reasons. Even the raw material is a problem. So, what possibilities that do we have to give a new lease of life for the construction industry?
As you know, the construction industry is 8% of our GDP. And also about 900,000 people work in the construction industry. So it's an important aspect of our economy in many ways. In addition to that, of course, it's a foreign revenue remitter from the Middle East of all our construction industry work in the Middle East and in Southeast Asia as well. So there's a positive side to that as well, in addition to the construction industry. So we have to look at it in overall terms, how we have developed the construction industry. The extent, of course, we have not gone to the extent of exporting the services in such a way that companies, construction companies, or the consultancy companies move as companies on the system for exchange. As far as Sri Lanka is concerned right now, I must say it always had its permanent problems. One of the biggest problems is the lack of labor, for the simple reason that there are Sri Lankan labor component that is available. The construction industry was very small. To the extent that they had to go and get foreign labor. The second, I would say the biggest problem is the construction costs. We have several layers of taxes on importing it. We don't produce enough of our tiles or fittings or paints or anything. We just don't produce enough. I can understand that. Small country, we have limitations. Production. But bringing anything in is always very costly. Which makes the construction cost in Sri Lanka one of the, is said to be lesser than Singapore, second less than Singapore. So, which makes our investments coming in also where they have to invest in the buildings a problem for them. So, to kick back the construction back to normal, of course, we have to solve the current problems we have with fuel and temporary. Our production problem, we have enough power plants, it's just that fuel is not available. So it's not a power problem, it's a fuel problem. We can get back like we did after COVID. We just have to focus on it and make sure that we can keep the same volumes that we did before. It's a big part of our economics. We have to focus on that.
So, Mendis, there was a very, very interesting aspect you brought up about our transportation, really. Actually, I think as engineers, we all know the lowest or most efficient form of transport, land transport, is the rail, right? But we have not adopted that adequately or even at the lowest level. Why do you think is that? In the Sri Lankan context, actually.
Yes, railways, very little investment has happened over the last 30, 40 years. We extended, the only extension was from Malith to Mendis a few years ago. We have not done anything new. Investment has been very little to the extent that it doesn't contribute to our economy in such a way that we can get quite a lot of the load of our roads into the railway. Other countries have progressed very much, even India, from the colonial, because they got off the Indian railway, they have improved since then. We have done very little. So the railway, of course, has its own structural problems. As you know, we had a highways department, roads department, or we had a highway authority. And the authority was able to get things, road authority was able to get things done a lot more because they had the authority to do so. So maybe structurally also we have to see about what reforms need to be done in our railway services industry, how we can improve that. So it's not only investment not going in, but be able to get it done and then improve the service, improve the human resources within the railway system.
Yeah. So actually, it's a very, very timely and very appropriate point that you have brought up, because the importance of using railway effectively is very, very, very apt. And practically all developed countries are quite powerful in their railways. Okay, thank you very much, Malith, with this. So coming to Engineer Rohan, Senevirathna. So I think at this moment, people are very much interested in electricity and maybe not very happy with the CEB also, because the electricity cuts are coming through CEB. So, but now you are actually explaining very nicely how we are going to proceed to 2030 and how we are going to achieve the SDGs by that time. And and there, the sustainable or the renewable energy sources, and about the difference between the energy use as well as the power requirement. And the standing, or I think you used a special word for that, the power plants to support the sustainable or renewable energy options, because just the renewable energy options will not increase it, that or only will not help the picture. You need others to back up. So, so when actually these non-renewable things do come in, they also do have a lot of bearing on the cost of installation. So how do you think we can manage that now? Your estimates are, I think, includes those also. Now, can you say how, how the public will accept that? And we have not gone into LNG at all. How LNG will affect in our generation mix. So can you give a small brief summary about that?
Well, now, as I said in my presentation, to integrate large quantities of renewable power, you have to have firm power as well.
Yeah, that's the word, firm power. Yeah.
Without the firm power, you cannot integrate large quantities of renewable energy because, as you all are aware, renewable energy is seasonal and also intermittent. So in that case, you have to have firm power as well as you need certain support from battery technology and so on. So when the chief engineers prepare this discussed long-term generation plan along with the renewable integration study, they look at all these scenarios. So they look at the energy security and the sustainability and the economics of power generation. So it's a kind of a triangle-like thing. So they do various scenarios and to identify which and which power plant should come, which and which firm power plant should come in respective years, and along with that, how much renewable energy additions that we can absorb to the grid while maintaining the grid stability. So that is the equation. So it's a very tedious, complex evaluation and process. So they use the latest world-renowned software facilities, and they have been trained to do this exercise, but 70% scenario is a little new thing for them as well. So they are being trained by experts now to conduct this particular scenario. So definitely this scenario has firm power. So I think I showed in my presentation, definitely certain power plants should run on natural gas because that's a less polluted thing. So when you embark on the journey for green energy, so intermediate stage, we have to go for low carbon options. So that is one of the best low carbon options is the natural gas. So we need certain number of natural gas power plants, firm power plants to support this exercise. And what is existing in the coal power will run. We will run for next 15, 20 years. So in addition to that, we need these firm power plants. So firm power plants should be mainly gas turbines or combined cycles or reciprocating. So all these type of power plants can run on natural gas. So natural gas, you have benefits. One is it is environmentally friendly to a certain level. Other thing is when you compare with the fuel-based power plants, it is cheaper. So therefore, we have to bring the natural gas as another special fuel source for the country. So we are working on that. CEB is doing a lot of work to bring this terminal infrastructure and the pipelines and so on. So a lot of work is going on. So hopefully we will have natural gas in the country by means of converting from liquid natural gas. So by end of 2024 or so that we will have a new source, and that source will do this firm power support to absorb more renewable energy.
Yeah, okay, that's one thing. But on the other hand, we can't be completely, liberated from fossil fuels. Even now, fossil fuels are supposed to run out at some stage.
and electricity requirement is steadily going up. Energy requirement of the humankind is going up due to per capita demand as well as the increase in the population of the world. So how do you think we are going to manage when we run out of fossil fuels? Because even LNG is a fossil fuel. Yeah, LNG is a fossil fuel. So if we assume that the fossil fuel will be run out in say certain number, certain year or so, so definitely we have to backward and calculate and do whatever the things that we can do. The option is renewable. So if you don't have fossil fuel, the option is renewable now. So renewable means mainly wind, solar and hydro. They are all transient. They are all transient, but hydro is not so transient. If you have good large storage capacities, it is not so transient. But transient nature of wind and solar also can be addressed through new technologies. So mainly through battery storage and also pump storage. And there can be certain new technologies that are going to come. So using those technologies, I think this intermittency and the cyclic behavior of renewable energy can be addressed to may not be 100%. So I think in time to come, the world will go to get more renewable energy and also to have more storage and new technologies. So the storage is actually the key. Yeah, storage is a key to absorb more renewable energy. Yeah, please.
From here, potential of hydropower in Pakistan is 80,000. I count Nepal often because I lecture there. And again, the Himalayas, Nepal, northern Nepal, potentially 8,000. They developed only 800. So international grids providing power to countries where it can be produced to those countries who consume, will that be something that can come through international agreements and understanding? And I think that we have reached that.
Yeah, so that means cross borders.
Cross borders.
Yeah. Okay, so that might be the solution one day.
Long-term solution, of course, renewables.
Yeah.
Solar and wind, but
SARC grid, I think we have been talking about the SARC grid for some time. So if we have excess energy from another country, then we can pass it over to the other countries, different peak times and so on. As you said, a lot of hydro potential maybe in other countries. Yeah. So we can exchange power among the countries so that we can reduce the carbon footprint as much as possible. Thank you very much. So now I would like to move on to because the Induruwa is joining with us. So Professor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, Professor. Now I think you have come up on a topic that is very appropriate and very important to everybody in this world. We have to eat. So and use of this IoT. Now, Professor, you have mentioned, I think there was a point that these IoT devices are very much proliferated and their cost is not that high. But so much of production actually would have a substantial carbon footprint of these devices because they need these manufacturing processes. How do you think that we can handle that aspect? Because as time goes on, these devices are going to be much more. So
yes, that's a very good and very pertinent question. I think you got to look at it this way. It's true that you need to use energy to produce these devices, and of course you have to use natural resources like silicon or any other semiconductor material. But the fact that these are very minute, if you compare, for example, 20-30 years back, the CPU of a computer was something like 2 square inches. But as the technology improved, the miniaturization helped us to bring it down to the size of probably a pinhead. So these IoT devices, the nature of the requirement is that they have to be small. So remember, I talked about this IoT tag, which is tagged on to the cow's eye and to the ear, and that requires to be lightweight and also small. And it has to be powered by a little battery, which is charged by solar energy. Now, if you look at those requirements, it can't be a very large device which is consuming a lot of power. So that is the reason why you tend to produce that with low carbon footprint. And also, as I said, already there's a total of 22 billion devices deployed in the world. And just imagine your mobile phone that you carry in your pocket, that has on the average about 15 IoT devices embedded in it. Now that's how you get this 22 billion, three per person on Earth. So the technology is advancing in such a way that we are able to produce these in large quantities, but yet consuming less power. I'm not going to say that it is zero carbon neutral. It is not, but the benefits of that, for example, if you look at in terms of engineering, I think one of the technologies that has resulted because of engineering, internet is the one that has revolutionized the world in a manner that cannot be compared with any other technology. It has touched the lives of more people than other technologies directly. So, the revolution will continue, the evolution will happen, and therefore the industry will also come up with techniques and solutions to be able to produce the necessary components at a lower cost and using less energy. But looking at the current level of technology applications, I don't think it will be possible to have a completely zero carbon footprint in the manufacture of IoT devices and the use of IoT devices.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. One other thing I would like to bring up is actually now we are depending so much on solar energy. And solar energy needs PV, photovoltaic cells. And that actually would have much more, unlike the IoT devices that you mentioned, the photovoltaic cells need a lot of raw material to be used. So, and we will be depending so much on those, and their efficiency levels have not come up to, appreciable or enviable levels. So what do you think about that for the future?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point because it all depends on the area of coverage. For example, if you need to produce electricity, you need a fair amount of surface cover in order to capture sufficient photovoltaic energy to convert to electricity. Now, therefore, in order to produce large areas of solar panels, you need to use more material, ingredients, as well as energy. And also, even if you start with the high efficiency in terms of conversion, the environmental pollution will also try to reduce the efficiency as time goes on. And of course, the aging is another factor that will reduce the efficiency of the panels. As I said, the miniaturization is the key thing when it comes to IoT devices, because the amount of the semiconductor material that is used in an IoT device is much, much less than what goes into production of a solar cell. So obviously, therefore, the amount of energy that is needed to produce that device is less compared to a solar panel. And also the packaging. The IoT device need not be packaged in a completely environmental proof condition, whereas the solar panel has to be protected from wind, rain, snow in this country, and gale force winds and things like that. So therefore, the construction of a solar panel cannot be directly compared with the corresponding IoT device that you're thinking of.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think this item is very clear. So I think now we have programmed our webinar to have been completed by 7:25, and now we have gone to almost 8:30. So I will not because I think you have been very patiently listening, and you have got your inputs. So I'm very thankful for the our resource persons who have very graciously shared their knowledge with us, and also participated very enthusiastically in our discussion. So let me thank you all on behalf of the ISL, and also I will not forget our audience who have come here to the ISL Vimal Surendra Auditorium, as well as all over the world and in Sri Lanka, people who are engineers and our friends who are listening. So let me thank you all again for being with us today, and we have to be very happy and very proud that now we have an International Day for Engineering and Engineers, 4th of March. So internationally acclaimed and recognized. So let's meet again maybe next year on the 4th of March with many strides made between that two days. So let me thank you all, and I will hand over the proceedings to our company. Thank you.
We would like to appreciate all the presenters and the session chairman who have shared their valuable thoughts with us. In appreciation of your support to make this event a success, we have arranged small mementos. I would like to first invite President-elect Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri on stage to present the memento to Engineer Professor T.M. Palewappu. Thank you, President-elect Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri. Now my cordial invitation goes to past President Engineer B.R.O. Fernando on stage to present the memento to Engineer G.A. Amila Rukshan. Thank you, Engineer B.R.O. Fernando. My next invitation goes to past President Engineer Senevirathna Fernando on stage to give the memento to Engineer Malith Mendis. Thank you, Engineer Senevirathna Fernando. My next invitation goes to immediate past president, KPIU Dharamapala, on stage to give the memento to Engineer Rohan Senevirathna. Thank you, Engineer KPIU Dharamapala. Now my cordial invitation goes to Vice President Engineer Professor Ranjit Disanayake to symbolically present the memento to Dr. Chandana Gamage on behalf of Engineer Professor Abe Induruwa. Thank you very much. Now we have reached to the end of this event. To give a commendable thanks to everyone who contributed, please welcome Senior Vice President of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, Engineer Granny Jayalath, to propose the vote of thanks. Engineer Granny R. Jayalath has graduated with BSc Engineering degree in 1986 from University of Moratuwa. He obtained MSc from University of Twente, the Netherlands, in 1998 through a scholarship received from Netherlands Higher Education Ministry in 1996. He obtained a master's in economics from University of Colombo in the year 2008. He has further completed a postgraduate diploma in construction management from Open University of Sri Lanka in 1991 and a postgraduate diploma in information technology from SLIT in the year 2001. He joined the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka in February 1988 as an associate member and as a fellow in 2005. He has been admitted as a Fellow of Chartered Institute of Highways and Transport UK in 2008, and he is a chartered member of Chartered Institute of Transport and Logistics. He is also a life member of the Indian Road Congress, a member of World Roads Congress, and a member of the Society of Structural Engineers Sri Lanka. Engineer Granny R. Jayalath has served the council representing members during the session 2004-2005 and then onwards representing fellows as an honorary secretary to the council for 3 sessions respectively. He has also served as the chairman of LNP committee and the CPD committee of the institution. He has served as a vice president of 5 sessions, including the current session. Engineer Granny R. Jayalath, the stage is yours.
Dear President, Engineer Dr. Amila, and our most valued invited speakers, Engineer Amila, Rukshan, Engineer Malith Mendis, Engineer Rohan Senevirathna, and Professor Abe Induruwa, and Professor T.M. Palawata. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks at the end of this important seminar to mark the World Engineering Day 2022. On behalf of the Institution of Engineers and the Council and its staff of the Secretariat, I extend my heartiest vote of thanks to all the speakers for gracing this important function and for sharing your valued opinions and findings with us on this evening. We are grateful to Engineer Rukshan for his concerns expressed on the new engineering approaches to safeguard the marine environment. Further, we are grateful to Engineer Malith Mendis, my colleague, for your thoughts on the relevance of the SDG. I think you mentioned about 3, 6, 9, and 11
in respect of construction industry with particular reference to Sri Lanka. And your particular reference to the status of transport in the context of Sri Lanka, I am just mentioning that one. I am also worried person about the status of transport in Sri Lanka. Is an alarming, but I think we need to think about a way forward, how to get the things done. And our colleague, Engineer Rohan, Senevirathna, thank you very much for the way forward towards the mixed model towards the low carbon electricity grid. We are also grateful again to the Professor Induruwa for your IoT-based approaches for smart agriculture, again with particular reference to Sri Lanka. We all are inspired by the panel discussion managed by Professor T.M. Pallevatha, again my batchmate. And thank you, Professor Pallevatha, and Rohan also my batchmate. Thank you very much. Again, I couldn't mention that one at that stage. Okay, last but not the least, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record the heartiest thanks for the perfect logistic support that was organized through the Toastmaster and the IESL. And I extend my thanks for the organizing committee and the IESL Secretariat. Unless their effort, these sessions won't be this much of successful without taking that much of time. So I wish you a pleasing evening, and I stay with these remarks, expecting to see you all again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Granny Jalath. With that, we mark the end of the World Engineering Day. Today has certainly been very informative. Our journey towards sustainability is not an easy one. And the drivers of that journey are you, the engineers. Thank you all for joining us at the World Engineering Day. Hope to see you again at future sessions at IESL. And you all are invited to the dinner served at the members' lounge. Have a safe journey back. Thank you. Good night.